So hello and welcome to a new series which is going to detail how to underbody protect your beloved rig. Mine is a Nissan Navara D40, so I include how to install some strengthening plates because this thing is prone to bending, as I'm sure some of you guys have seen in the past. But the underbody is obviously the most important part, the chassis, the structure of your car. They're so prone to rust these days, especially with road salts. Over here in the UK, that's spread all over the roads to prevent frost and ice, as I'm sure it is in many countries across the world. That can be a pain to the underbody, causing rust and corrosion and therefore weakening and deteriorating your project's health. So to prevent that, you can use a range of applications, and there's all sorts of things on the market like bitumen paints, loads of different things, and I've actually opted for epoxy primer. Now, epoxy primer is amazing at preventing water ingress because it completely seals the surface. And to make sure that there was no previous rust on there, obviously there's loads of techniques for removal like wire wheeling, wire brushing. You can do it all manually, you can use needle tools, but I actually opted for probably the most aggressive method, which is grit blasting or sandblasting. I got a local company to do that, so you'll see in this series how I go through that whole phase of dismantling this to get it all sandblasted, protected with the Jotun marine paints, which are an incredible paint application designed here in the UK. They're used for marine and offshore installations, so they've got some great longevity, especially against like seawater. So I actually went for 3 coats of an epoxy primer, followed by 2 coats of an epoxy hardtop. That was optional, but it gives me the best protection and it allows me to see any damage because I use 2 different colours, as you will see. So this series goes through the dismantling of a Nissan Navara, the sandblasting and preparation of a chassis, then onto the priming and top coating, and then secondary protection like interior cavity protection and Lanoguard waxing on the outside, which is like a fluid film barrier that protects all of that paintwork that you've done, and it's just an extra step. And I hope you enjoy this series. It's going to be very in-depth. It will probably span 3 videos and you're going to see the real ins and outs of how to do this. And actually, before we start the series, I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of underneath. It's a bit hard to see, just to show you that there's been no corrosion since I've done this work. There's a few tiny little bits on the leaf springs in between because that's inevitable. They're flexing all of the time. There's going to be slight abrasion and it's just ever so slight surface rust. So touching that up with Lanoguard every now and again really seems to knock that on the head. So as you can see, there's no rust anywhere. Everything's in a really good condition, and you might say it looks quite dirty, but that's because actually the Lanoguard over time, it has a very slight tacky feel to it, so it does dust up, but all of that extra dust and kind of film just protects the chassis and your paintwork that little bit further. Nothing there is holding any moisture, which is the most important part. And actually the first stages of going into this clean is actually jet washing the inside of the chassis rails, which is a highly important part because they can contain loads of moisture, loads of material that can hold moisture, and it just starts corroding the chassis from the inside out. So it's a really important part of the whole process is making sure that inside is cleaned out. So using a long drain extension cleaner on a jet wash, so you can place that through all the inspection and drain holes on the chassis and withdraw it, then flushing out all of the material and dirt inside, preparing you for the next stage, which will be dismantling and then sandblasting or rust removal, however you do intend to do so. I actually completed this work about 1.5 years ago, so it's had a really good chance for me to make sure that this application wasn't going to instantly rust or anything like that. So I'm really happy to share this process with you. And of course, if you can do this in summer, it gives you a great chance for all of that water to dry out before you start any of this process. So I wish you luck with this series if you do undertake this to your truck, and just have a little bit of patience. It all takes a bit of time, but there's going to be a document down in the description below where you can get all of the kind of ratios for mixes, all of the paints that I used, and a kind of brief guide instructional on how to do it. Obviously this video will be your kind of go-to, but But yeah, try and do it in summer, sometime dry. If you can do it indoors, that's perfect. But it does get a little bit misty with all that spray, so good ventilation is absolutely key. Stay safe, and I hope you enjoy. Got the truck on a load of tarps now, ready to dismantle. So I've got Josh here and I've got Tom here to help me. We're going to start by taking the canopy off, then the pickup tub to expose the back chassis. So I'll show you a little bit of a progress as we go along. So get the canopy off, Josh has got the light off already, and then we're going to take the tub off. Bolts above the body lift blocks. So there's a nut and bolt here, captive nut, bolt at the bottom. So let's undo 6 of these for the king cab, 4 just on a double cab. Then we can lift the tub off. We've taken the tailgate off. So currently at the moment, Jim Bob and Josh are just taking off the body mount blocks. So they're the 2-inch blocks and there's bolts that obviously go up through them. A little bit seized, so it's always a bit of a hair raiser moment. So once we've got that off, then we can get the tub off, lift that up and have a little look, get the fuel tank off, rear axle, leaf springs, etc. And then we'll move to the front and get all the suspension up. So exciting times. Fingers. Yeah, now we're down on the original body mounts, but the car's higher. So we've got the back all off now, and the tub is now stood up over here. So the back is going to obviously have some sandblasting done to it in these locations where the rust's really bad. The majority of it is fairly good, so what I'll do is just give that a paint over after it's all been washed and sandblasted and what have you.
That's got a full hole on there, haven't they? Yeah. So that, yeah, probably like half.
So now the car's all up on axle stands, the rear axle can be dropped out. You can take the leaf springs off to put new centre pins in through there because one of them is broken on this side. So new centre pins in, the leaves and all the suspension bits can get painted.
Sweeties.
The rear axle isn't getting done because I'm getting that refurbished. So we've got the tub off now. It's all exposed. You can see some of the rust. I'll pull you in actually. So you can see all the kind of rust that I'm going to be targeting. And it's fairly less daunting now that I've taken the back off, but it's still going to be a big job. So we're going to be brushing 2 coats of primer on here. And we're going to go under the car very shortly to take off the exhaust. So remove all of that and then start working to the front, get the suspension off. It's all taking a bit of a beating, this Iron Man stuff. Impressed with the quality of the ride, but not so much the durability of it. Especially the rear shocks don't really return anymore, so but we'll see. We've got the fuel strap off, Josh?
Yes.
Fuel tank's off. All the pipes are nicely taped up, just to make sure nothing gets in there.
No D.
Done alright, isn't it, Jim?
No, we're getting there.
Getting there.
A lot of bits.
Hell of a lot. All of the suspension components out apart from the lower control arms, and we'll leave the drive shaft in there. Just going to throw a bag around that and tie it off and get the lower arm shot blasted. So the truck's all completely dismantled now. It's got no front end, no rear end, just the body on it. So it's going to be sheeted over the main body tomorrow to protect it. You can see we've already started working on some of this area. And this is just to protect it from any of the extra sand that's going to be coming when it's getting sandblasted tomorrow. So we started sheeting all this area in here, and we're going to go really to town with that tomorrow with some sheets and just as much kind of plastic and stuff we can get. Obviously want to reduce as much sand and stuff getting inside in the engine. Really want to reduce that as much as possible. But we'll get a good airline in there afterwards to make sure before we start anything up. So yeah, next time you'll see it'll be me and Josh here in the morning with the sandblasters. We'll probably just doing a bit of prep work before the sandblasters, and yeah, it should go well. So I'll keep you posted, and we'll see you then. So the sandblasters have just turned up, and they've done some really awesome protection to the trucks now. They've covered over all of the back there, all of the drive shafts and seals, and the engine bay. So that's really handy. They've gone up all into the wheel arches. So it just gives that added protection for bits like the alternator. And you can see they're called MK blasters. So we'll get some footage of them getting this rust off, and then we're going to prime up. So looking forward to it. That's awesome. So sandblasters have just gone now, so massive thank you to Ed at MK Blaster. Absolutely amazing service, and I'm so happy to now have this fully protected, or not quite yet, but free of rust. So we're going to get some good old primer on this. Me and Josh are just cleaning up the yard now, getting all of this sand up, get everything prepared, and then we're going to start brushing the first coat on. So we've got all of the tarps all clear, blown all down, the engine bay's been all vacuumed out. Very dusty job. And there's still some sand in the kind of surrounding area that will get up a bit. The most important bit is now to get the primer on. So we'll mix some of that up by pot and then brush it on. Start with the chassis and then onto the ancillary bits, because any little bits that maybe don't have time for can be left inside. So this is the Jotun Epoxy 90, and this is got aluminium in it. It's an epoxy primer, and this is the hardener. So it's a 2-part mix. And like I said, it goes 3.5 of this one to 1 part of this. So we're going to go with 350 mil. Got these mixing pots. They do kind of 3-to-1 ratios, but obviously this is a little bit more. So we're going to go 350 and then top it up to 450 with this bit. Probably needs a good stir. All that solids in the bottom.
And we only go into, what is it, 350?
Yeah.
Where my finger is. Get in there. A little bit. That's about right. That'll be about right probably for you. So you want 450, yeah. Get in there, yeah, that's going to be about right, I think, by the time it's settled. Put that lid back on.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Just getting there now.
That's a good mix there, so that will harden probably in about 3.5 hours. They say it's got kind of working time, so we should have plenty of time to apply this all over the chassis and then obviously the other bits. So we'll just see how far we get, and what we can't get done today we'll leave indoors to prevent from getting rust on it. So we're going to start painting now. Got the aluminium Jotun Epoxy, so just be a case of get it on every surface that has been blasted, all the bare metal, and this just really ensures it kind of gets in there with the brush. So we're going to carry on brushing this stuff on, and then once it's all up and on, we'll give you a little update and show you the progress of it all going on, or how far we've got, and then
Hopefully be obvious.
yeah, hopefully
Same colour. I can tell.
it's just an important phase, getting this on, seal it in from the moisture, and then everything else, that any little bits that weren't able to be got will be sprayed over in the next few days. We're going to do 2 more coats of this primer. They're going to go on with a sprayer, so that will get in absolutely everywhere and give a nice uniform coat. So catch up with you then. So we've painted all of this front section now, you can see all over this, all over that section, all over here, and it's a little bit hard to see because it is a silver primer, but nevertheless everything's coated in the hangers. Underneath I've been getting all of the areas under here, a little bit hard to see with the camera. But all of this area under here, all of there, it's all getting coated, guys. So, and any little areas that are a little bit tricky to get with the brush, we're trying to get as much paint on as we can, but obviously that area will get sprayed as well. So carrying on down here, you can see the brush strokes in it, nice and thick paint, really, really good, nice finish, and that will just seal off those areas that we've had sandblasted, and obviously spray the rest of the primer on. So we're going to carry on down here. We're about halfway down the body now, and we're going to carry on doing all this section and then work the back, which is going to be a lot easier, and then we'll get a coat on the suspension bits and the tyres and the bull bar. So the reason we actually decided to brush this application on was to ensure that there was the best adhesion to the chassis as possible. The problem is when you're spraying this with an airline is that those air bubbles can actually prevent it fully from sticking into those deep pores that have been opened up through sandblasting or through any rust removal. So I actually spoke with Jotun, I spoke with Pete, one of their technical teams, and he was very kind and gave me loads of in-depth information, and we came across the best route for doing this application would be brush method. It ensures that there's a good thick coating, it gets in all those nooks and crannies, and no bits are missed. Obviously, this product is meant to be applied with an airless sprayer, so if you do have access to one of those, this is going to go on much quicker and you can just spray it on with an airless sprayer. Unfortunately, those things are very expensive, both to hire and purchase, so I decided to do a very thick application with the paintbrush, followed by a thinned down sprayed version for 2 more coats, and that would give the best supreme finish and really good coating. Obviously, the aluminium also in this product helps prevent corrosion and rust itself. So, excuse the hair, it's a bloody mess. The old hat came off after getting a bit of epoxy paint on it, and then shortly after got some in my hair, so might be time to go back on. Probably first time you see me without a hat, eh? But first coat of primer is now on the whole truck, all apart from the areas here, which is where the plate's going to go. And the plates have been sent by Rich Newby, who's an amazing chap on Nissan Navara net, the forums. He's been on there for years and years, and he's got an amazing rig, one that inspired mine, to be honest. So he sent me out the plates, which feature an amazing reinforced gusset on them. So that will give some good integrity to the tub, because we all know how prone these are to snapping. So a little bit of future proofing. So that's the only bit in that middle section you can see there that hasn't been primed, and the rest has all been brushed over with a thick coat of the epoxy primer from Jotun, the Jotun 90 aluminium version. And I've also done the underside of the tub, all the cross members going across there, and all the patches of rust that were then sandblasted. Josh is now taping up the tyres because they got sandblasted as well. And I'm going to go in and hang up the suspension parts off of the trestles so I can give those a coat just to seal them in, stop any more rust coming in. So let's see what Josh is up to.
Tape.
Nice. Good old job there.
Oh, man. Little.
Protect it from all the edges, won't it?
Furious brush strokes.
Oh, yes. We got both sides done, but mainly the front section to be worried about on these, because the tyres will be changed very soon, so we won't worry about the back section. So yeah, really happy with that. It's going well. So unfortunately we forgot to take off the wheel balancing bits before sandblasting, but nevertheless it's worth taking them off now, because otherwise it will always have that little patch unpainted under there. So we'll just get the wire brush on that, and that should just key it up enough to take the prime anyway. So that'll be perfect. So I've got this trestle system here, guys, and that's just a normal builder's trestle, and it goes up in height, and I'm just hanging off of this bar here, so I've got somewhere to paint these bits and leave them to dry overnight. I'm probably going to leave these for a good 12-24 hours to really go off, and then on the Monday come in and give everything a good coat over with the paint. We've got about 3 or 4 days over paintable time, so yeah, gonna spray that on Monday just after everything has had a really good time to cure off, that first coat to really settle in. So I hope you've enjoyed that first episode about the kind of preparation and priming of the chassis, and how important it is to do different phases, making sure that all of that previous rust does get removed and that you get a good even coverage with an epoxy primer. And in my recommendation, you really can't go wrong with the brush application. It does take a little bit longer, it is a little bit messy, but it does ensure that you get a good, thick and even coverage, which is what you really want for the bottom coat, because really that's the bit right next to the metal that counts. So I'll see you all in part 2 when we get onto the next stages of primer coats and the actual hard top.